Red Dead 2 on the ROG Ally. So first of all, we're at 30 watts plugged in. So plugged in settings, make sure the refresh rate is at 120 for VRR, 1080p. We're basically using the Xbox One X settings that Digital Foundry recommended, but with a couple tweaks. So first of all, FSR2 quality, then something like this, and that's basically it. You can go one setting higher on each setting if you want to. You can go one setting above what I said if you want to. Personally, for 1080p, well, for 1080p it actually makes more sense. You can also do native resolution if you don't mind 30 FPS. One thing that I did notice though when playing at a high resolution like this, considering it's a handheld console, is that there are some frame time stutters when in this city. We are CPU bound usually in this city, but I increased the settings enough to get a decent GPU usage. So here we're basically 40 to 50, let's say. Maybe you want to lower FSR to performance. But overall, here that we're more CPU limited, I think we got good usage out of the GPU. Also, one thing that I had to change is the VRAM UMA VRAM buffer to 1 GB instead of the default 4 GB. I don't know why, but this game has issues with that on Steam Deck, but on the ROG Ally it also does. When you're close to the water, for some reason, if your VRAM on the BIOS is set to anything above 1 GB, it drops frames like crazy when there's water, so it seems to be an issue with the game itself. So yeah, that will be if you don't care about the performance that much. You can also do native 1080p. The game is already pretty soft looking. So very quickly, we're doing native resolution. So with native resolution, we drop into the 30s, but the game looks much sharper. Probably not very noticeable in the video. So yeah, if you want basically native 1080p, which is the panel's native resolution, and I'm not hitting anything at 30. You can do it like this, maybe lock it to 30 to get a bit more battery life. Personally, I wouldn't play it like this, since 1080p on such a small screen I think is overkill. It's not like I'm looking at the screen at this distance. So if you want to stick to the native resolution but have the UI super crisp, maybe consider performance FSR2. Let's lower the sharpness of it a little bit. Apply the changes. So with performance FSR2, we get a much higher frame rate obviously. And we should be closer to the VRR window. That means there will be, you feel a smoother gameplay experience. As long as you're between 48 and 120 FPS, you should be good to go. And I think with performance FSR, despite looking blocky in a game that already looks pretty soft, on the smaller screen is fine. That's what I'm trying to say. The smaller screen really remedies that issue, in my opinion. But the UI looks insanely sharp. Alright, so now 900p, still at 30 watts, 900p now. Unbalanced FSR2, just to see if we can get a decent balance of quality and performance. So same settings as before, but 900p. And as I said before, make sure to have the VRAM set to 1 GB for this game. Otherwise, when you're close to water, you drop into the 30s sometimes. It's not 100% stable, but with the VRAM set to 1 GB, it seems to be much better. And here with balanced FSR2 at 900p, it seems to be much better when it comes to smoothness. Of course, the UI will be a little bit worse because it's a lower resolution, but overall it seems to be closer to the VRR window than 1080p, so you get a small hit when it comes to the UI's resolution, but in the smaller screen it still looks good. And as you can see, we are CPU limited. The GPU usage drops, which Again, this part uses quite a bit of CPU. When you're outside this moment, it's usually okay. Whoops. Sorry, horse. So yeah, that's the thing. Many NPCs, more geometry, all that good stuff. Of course, I didn't have everything that I needed. Everyone is bald for some reason. That's okay. So if you're using a power bank playing at 30 or 25 watts, you should expect something like this. What I'm trying to say is, even if you play at 720, it won't hit consistent 60s because you will be CPU limited here. But very quickly, just to show you, let's do 720. 720, make sure, again, this is 120. It's because I'm on a capture card that I'm choosing 60. FSR2 quality, and let's see what happens. You can see we hit 60s more often, but it doesn't stay there all the time. Also, there's less NPCs on screen, so less CPU usage, which is good. That means we can get a higher frame rate due to the lower amount of enemies on screen. But we're still CPU limited. My advice would be a 60 FPS lock, but keep the refresh rate at 120, so you are within the VRR window with something closer to the screen's native resolution. Again, you can do 1080p performance as well, but it drops below 40 something FPS. But you get the one-to-one pixels, so the UI looks way sharper at 1080p. So I think it's now time to show you, without 30 watts, what some people would say is okay battery life wattage. So let's drop the wattage and I'll be back. Now we're playing on battery at 20 watts TDP, so 1080p, 120. Same settings as before. I'll go through them super quickly. Performance FSR2. These are all of them. Again, you can go one setting above what I'm showing you. I'm just trying to get consistent performance, but again, you can go one higher, shouldn't be an issue. You can also lower it to 18 watts, but you're going to be sacrificing performance as well. But as you can see, 1080p, even in non-CPU heavy areas, it can drop the frame rate below 50. Again, I'm playing 1080p on a portable device here. I think this is overkill when it comes to game settings, with resolution, I mean. And when getting into Saint Denis, again, for some reason I'm getting those stutters every once in a while, especially when entering it for the first time. My guess, once again, is CPU limitation. Again, a lot of NPCs, more geometric detail, all that stuff. So this is 1080p. Again, if you're playing at 30 or 25 watts, I think it makes more sense to have that. On portable, looks super sharp, looks amazing. But I would do something in the middle. The something in the middle I'm talking about is 900p, with every setting the same. But FSR2 on performance, again, we're playing at 20 watts. That's why we need to do some sacrifices. And now we're closer to the 50s. Again, not perfect by any means, obviously. But we're playing from the battery, which should give you, give or take, 90 minutes. Should give you more if the FPS are locked to something like 48. But you can really notice the performance degradation of going from 30 watts to 20. But when the NPCs basically disappear, it's less CPU demanding, so we stay into the 50s. So it all depends on what's going on. Oh, there's same assist. Okay, that explains the weirdness with the joystick. So probably 900p on either performance or balanced FSR. So now that I showed you that, let's do 720 super quickly. Now I dropped to 720, again 120 Hz, just to have that VRR running. Same settings, but quality FSR2. 720 with battery power at 20 watts instead of 900p. And as you can see, we're still into the 50s, depending on what's going on, of course. It's going to change a little when it comes to performance. But the city, let's call it like the worst case scenario when it comes to stability. Because there's more geometry than usual, there is more NPCs, more stuff going on. When you start being chased by the police and the cities get more empty, it's going to run better. That's why now I'm getting better performance than expected. But this should give you, first of all, 1.5 hours of battery on a full charge, give or take. That's the first thing. The second thing is you're usually within the VRR window, so the game is pretty smooth looking. To get to the city, you're usually, again, quite a few hours just riding around the wilderness. This part of the game, it'll take you a while to get here. But as you clear the city and there's less NPCs and all that, less CPU limitation, the frame rate will be closer to 60. And we also have some volumetrics going on, which are super nice. So now here actually we're GPU limited. But there's some stutters here and there, especially when traversing. Okay, so after dying, I'm back in the city. And as you can see, the frame rate is back dropping into the 40s. Again, that's because there's more people in the city. Because there's no shootout going on. Let's turn around to the middle of the city. So this is normal in more complex environments. Geometrically complex environments. When you're in the wilderness, it's okay. When you are in small towns, it's usually okay. But when you're in a city like this one, which again is pretty rare, in this game you're mostly in the wilderness. It's Red Dead after all. It to be better than this area, that's what I'm trying to say. Overall, a great experience. My advice would be 720, just to get that smoother frame rate well within the VRR window with great visuals. You can also do 1080p if you don't care about 30 FPS. If you want to use native resolution, that's not an issue. You can do it as I showed you in this video. But I'd rather have some smoothness, especially that we have the VRR screen. I think that's a great opportunity. The game still looks great. You can crank it up one setting above what I showed you on each of the settings, if you don't mind dropping a couple frames here and there. So yeah, that's basically it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. There's also videos of this on the Steam Deck LCD, and I'm making a Steam Deck OLED video. That one will be super interesting due to the HDR thing. And yeah, let me know which setting you would use, plugged in and unplugged. That will be interesting to see what you guys' thoughts are. I hope you found this video useful. And yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. I love the future. We can play Red Dead 2 in a portable machine.